Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on Spy Family episode 14. Last episode was a great start to the second quarter. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, we're not out of the fire yet, right? You're caught up and has saved Anya seemingly, but we still have this dog to deal with. We still have the bomb threat to deal with. Lloyd's trying to counteract all that with Wise. Like, it's just things are still up in the air. So we're not out of the fire yet, but I was really glad that you were caught up in the last episode and was able to help Anya, because poor girl, she can only do so much, right? But I do have some comments before we start the episode, just talking about episodes 12 and the first episode, and kind of tying back to episode 11 and then also episode 13. But Ashley Penn and several other people commented, but Ashley Penn was the first one that I read, talked about how episode 12, which was the mid-season finale, was actually based off of several bonus chapters from the manga. And I was like, okay, and we'll talk more about that in a second, but also that the dog that our old Borf, we don't have an official name for him yet. I think somebody spoiled me on the name of him, but I'm not going to say it until we actually get confirmation. I think someone spoiled me on the name of him, but I'm going to wait till we get confirmation in the show. But that the dog is based off of Great Pyrenees. And I was like, oh, I could see that. I'm from a rural community. There's lots of farmers here that have livestock, and Great Pyrenees are a pretty typical, like, not a herding dog, but like a working dog. They're usually used on farms to like watch over animals. They don't really herd, they just watch over them. So that's a great fit for Anya. I was like, if it's based on a Great Pyrenees and he's like a watching, protecting dog, I like that a lot, right? Very, very cute. And then originally this episode aired around Father's Day, which I was like, oh, originally episode 12 aired around Father's Day, which is funny because Ashley was talking about in their comment that Lloyd is really tired in that episode, and it's like, well, it's around Father's Day, Lloyd's being a dad, he's overworked because of his missions for Wise. It all kind of adds up, so I thought that was really funny. But I wanted to tie into Ashley Penn's comment about the bonus chapters alongside Beatrice Oliveira, who talked about that the events of episode 12 were based off of various bonus chapters that were scattered throughout the manga during this time period that this season takes place, and that there's some canon material built in, but it's funny because there's this conversation that started where Beatrice and some others said that it maybe would have been a better idea to have done episode 12 before the Stella episode and then had the Stella episode be the mid-season finale, which I could see that. Yeah, you'd end mid-season with Anya getting the very first Stella, having the dramatic drowning incident. Like, it would have been a nice big, like, victorious moment for Anya in that episode. But I will say that Alexander Q pointed out that episode 12 kind of encapsulates, though, the messages of the show more fluidly than episode 11 does. And that Alexander was saying, well, I would rather have episode 12 at the end as a mid-season, because even though narratively it is more filler, and narratively it doesn't exactly, it takes a break from the dog plot, which we pick up in episode 13, it still has those themes about family and about those dynamics that are kind of the big theme of the show as a whole. So Alexander's all for episode 12 being the mid-season, and some others said they'd rather have episode 11. I think it's fine either way. I don't view it as a mid-season. I just view it as just changing course, and we're halfway through the season. I don't view episodes 13 and 14 as season 2. We're just continuing season 1. So I'm viewing it as like a whole experience instead of just splitting it in half, if that makes sense. And then Sarah Linda had a really cool headcanon. They're like, I don't know if this is going to be a thing that happens in the show or not. They're not a manga reader. But Sarah Linda was like, I wonder if like maybe the modifications that have been done on our doggo not only allows them to see the future, but maybe extends their life. I'm like, I'm all for that. I want this beautiful Borf to stay alive a long time. I said in the Discord that Borf makes it sound like Barf from Spaceballs. So it kind of has the same thing going on. But I thought those comments were great. I'm excited to see people's comments about episode 13 because it was a lot of fun, despite being a little bit more serious than it has been in past episodes. So yeah, we're not out of the frying pan. We're still in the fire. I'm curious to see how Yor and Anya are going to handle themselves against this terrorist cell, and how we're going to handle these bomb dogs. What's our dog boy going to do? How is Lloyd dealing with all this? It's like, what do we do from here? So it should be a lot of fun, right? So in any case, we're going to find out. So let's not waste any more time. We are going to start Spy Family episode 14. And we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Okay. How is it that we get more action in this one episode of Spy Family than we've gotten in, I think, all of Core 1? The tone shifted a little bit. We were talking at the beginning of this about episodes 11 and 12, and episode 11 had a little bit of a darker tone with the kid drowning or nearly drowning and getting into that. And this series has always done a really good job of tonally, talking about the fact that it's spies, that there's trying to stop the bad guys, and there's violence, but it's never been it has never felt very serious or threatening in this series until this episode. And in this episode, I'm like, oh no, we're really serious about this. We did the tonal shift. I was like, okay, we're just jumping up a notch. All right, fine. I'm here for it, but I was not expecting that in my Spy Family. But I guess if you're taking a subject that's as serious as terrorism, then even Spy Family is like, we're going to take this very seriously. And I love Sylvia's speech. Sylvia's speech about war and Loid being like, I hate it. I felt like with the tone of this episode, the tone needed to be jumped up a notch so that speech that Sylvia gives could resonate a little bit harder. And I was like, yeah, that makes much more sense. But man, this episode got pretty grim real quick. I wanted to bring Whiteboard King out because I wanted to go through Sylvia's speech and talk about it, right? And just see how it goes. But man, you're just coming in and being like, she's like, I just got married this year. Anya's not getting married. And I like that Keith is like, what do we do with this, right? And so then, yeah, we have our OP, which is absolutely gorgeous. They don't really give you the option to skip this OP, not that you would want to. But yeah, I love that. And poor Anya. Anya's just like, Mama! She's like, I was so scared. Because yeah, at the end of the day, Anya is like a 5-year-old. Like a little kindergarten kid or first grade kid that is terrified. Because yeah, she nearly got taken out by the bad guys. And Anya's watched Bond Man enough that she knows the bad guys are serious. And here it's real life. So of course she'd be traumatized. But I'm glad that Anya, she doesn't let it deter her from trying to save Loid. And God, girl, just sing my praises to Anya, right? And then he's like, that's her mom? It's like, well, now I have to dispose of them both. And I love that Yor's like, it's okay. You're all right. Yor does make a really good mom. She's like, oh, it's okay. Don't be scared. It's all right. I'm here. And honestly, I'm a dog person. I love dogs. So there were several times it's when Loid's going to have to shoot that dog. And I'm like, that German Shepherd. And I was like, damn it, I don't want to watch that German Shepherd die, but it's got a bomb on it. It was going to blow up anyway. Ugh. Or maybe he wasn't. Maybe he won't shoot the dog, but I have a feeling he's going to shoot the dog. But when he orders the German Shepherd to attack her, I'm like, yeah, dogs, if they're trained by awful people to do bad things, can be pretty menacing. And just that dog going after her. And I love that she turns and gives the face right back to the dog. And Anya's just Anya's just as scared of her mom as she is of the dog. And Keith the dog German Shepherd's like, nope. And I love that Keith's like, get back here. And and she's like, Mama, I'm scared. And Yor's like, oh, I'm sorry, you're safe now. Yor's fantastic. I love her more and more each episode. And then so a crowd starts to gather and Keith is like, this is not good. And he's so mean. He just kicks the dog with his stupid rolled up pants. Get some fashion sense before you start kicking that dog. It's so mean. And then, but Yor stops herself. She was going to go after him. But she stops herself because she's like, I can't leave Anya alone again. Which she ends up doing it, but yeah, it's so, she's like, oh, I mustn't leave Miss Anya alone again, Yor. No, you can't do that. And because Anya's just sitting there terrified, right? Blinking. And she's like, okay, it'll be all right. She stops herself and then ties up Mr. Kidnapper. We'll teach him a lesson. And then the poor dog, she's like, I should hand this man over to the police. Mm-hmm. And then I like that Anya calls him Mr. Dog. And then Yor keeps saying, who's that puppy? But Anya's this is not a puppy. It's clearly an elderly dog, but it's fine. And so then they find out about the bomb dogs. And I wondered this too. I was kind of in the same boat as Yor. I'm like, do the dogs have the bombs inside of them or are they strapped to them? Because you never know. You never know how they're going to do it in this story. But luckily they're strapped to them. They're not really there. I was like, oh, thank goodness. I was like, oh, God, no. And they're like, Mr. Dog saved me. And she's like, the important thing is that you're safe. And it's like, oh. And she's like, I was so worried. And then that's when Anya's like, I'm sorry I ran without permission. And it's this little cute moment where Yor's like, I'm really glad that you're safe, but you're gonna get a stern talking to when we get back to the house. Like, you're gonna get some getting chewed out a little bit for running away. But right now, I'm just happy you're safe. And we need to report this man to the police. So meanwhile, while she's doing that and telling the story to the police officer and trying to explain, because Yor has to maintain that she's not an assassin. So she's like, how do I phrase this? That I'm just a housewife, just ran across this guy who's trying to take my kid. Like, how does she phrase all of this? And while she's doing that, Anya realizes that her dog friend, Mr. Dog, is seeing the future. And like his ears perk up like whenever he sees the future. And it's kind of like a little sign that he's seeing the future. Like she has the sparkles and he has the ears that perk up. And she's like, oh. But I like Sarah Linda kind of commented in her comment about episode 11, saying that the dog maybe isn't just not super intelligent, just kind of like average intelligence. Like they did make a note that the experiments didn't quite work out right. So he may not be a super smart dog, but he's just smart enough, right? But her seeing the future and she's saying, are you looking into the future again? Like, this part was pretty scary for a little kid. Because she sees, like, she sees, Loid and Yor with Anya and him in their house. And then it cuts to, like, this dark, grim future where it's Anya being super sad and Yor being super all alone there. And Anya's like, what the heck? She's like, why is Papa gone? And then it shows, like, the clock striking and you see the hand going down at the hands going down there like it was at the 6, and she's like, where is this? The pointy tower. And then we see the bomb go off and she sees her dad. And God, it was kind of grim, like showing him dead and passed out there. Like, what 5-year-old wants to see that, right? Like, that's terrifying. And then saying that the entire explosion caused this conflict between Westalis and Ostania and triggered what the terrorists wanted. And so she was like, all Anya knows is that her dad is going to die and then peace is not going to happen. And she's like, that was a vision from the future. And she's like, Papa's going to die and peace will be over. Like those concrete images in her head are just the things at stake, right? And of course, Borf is just like, I don't know what to do. And so she's like, she's like, what do I do? She's like, I can't tell my mom that I have these powers. I can't reveal it or everything's going to fall to pieces, but I can't let my dad die. She's like, how do I do it? And so she makes up the best thing ever. And that is that she's like, my dad doesn't have toilet paper. She's just as bad as Loid, like father, like daughter, right? It's great. And she's like, can you still run? And she just takes off and Yor's like, no, the thing of it is, Yor is getting better as a mom. She's like, I can't leave Anya alone. I've got to watch out for her. But whenever Anya runs off, she's like, stop. That's what Yor does. But she's getting better, right? She is slowly getting better. She's like, I'm sorry, I got to go. My kids ran off again. But Anya, to be fair, but God, Sylvia, this episode, she is fierce and fantastic. And so they basically narrow down and get the terrorist group and catch them and take them in to interrogate them. And they have 4 members and 3 dogs and the bombs and everything. And Keith is left, right? And Keith is noting, because here's the thing that's kind of crazy is that Keith kind of catches on that it's not secret police that are interrogating, it's somebody from the West. And so now that makes him like feel more on an agenda and a time scale, right? But it is kind of curious that you not only have Wise in there trying to infiltrate, but you also have the secret police trying to gather intel too. And these two forces can't collide. So it makes everything a little bit more delicate treading around, right? It makes things a little more delicate. And they try to I thought the one guy that ends up going along with the older man with the mustache, along with Loid and them to like get Keith cornered, I thought he was Loid at first. I thought Loid had on a disguise so that nobody could, in case the secret police came in, they wouldn't know. But that wasn't the case. And they were blindfolded, so they wouldn't know either. But the guy kind of looks the guy with the newsboy hat kind of looks a little bit like Loid. So, and these guys are like, they're telling him to eat shit and like get a shitter and stuff. Like the language, the violence, like we had a tonal shift in Spy Family. It jumped up a notch. And then Sylvia, leave the howling to the dogs. You're making my ears hurt. She's glorious in this scene. Like that end shot with her in the silencer. Oh my God. And her and Loid. So let's just talk real quick. I'm going to move whiteboard tune a little bit over this way. So let's just talk real quick. Clearly, I almost put Anya, but we have Sylvia and Loid. They clearly have known each other. They clearly have known each other for a while, right? For a while. It's kind of funny because Sylvia with the red hair, I put Anya up there at first on accident, but it's almost like Sylvia was Loid's first wife and she's the actual mom of Anya, and then Yor is the second wife, right? It's kind of interesting, but Sylvia has this speech about war where she's like, hello students. She's like, you guys are just pretending to be terrorists. Your school didn't teach you how war goes because you've never been in it before. So you don't know. She's like, oh, you want a war. You have no clue what you're getting signed up for, do you? Her with the heel like in his mouth. Oh, I was like, step on me, please, Sylvia. I'll take it. But yeah, God, what a badass. I would cosplay her in a heartbeat. She's so badass and cool. But yeah, I mean, the thing about it is that, and I've talked about it in comments before, but the way this series is set up, you almost kind of, it seems almost like a very behind the scenes war, if that makes sense. It's not always at the forefront of the episodes, and it's always kind of in the background that war is looming or that there has been war. It's always been looming in the background, but it's never, when you see people walking the streets and stuff, you wouldn't necessarily tell that they were in the midst of this conflict. But as Sylvia points out to these guys, she's like, no, I've been up there firsthand and seen what it's like. You don't want to go there, but God, she's great. I'm like, yes, please. She's wonderful. She's like, have you actually killed a person before? So she asks these questions. Have you killed a person? Do you even know what that's like? She asks that. And as she steps on them, and she's like, have you ever been killed by anyone? Obviously the answer is no. She's like, have you been killed? So you don't know what that's like. I mean, asking that question when the answer is obviously no. And they're like, of course we haven't, you stupid bitch. And she's like, have you ever lost a limb? So she says, have you lost a limb in an attack? And clearly these are all people that she knows, I'm sure, that have gone through this very thing, right? As she pulls the silencer out, have you ever heard bones being smashed? So have you heard bones being smashed? As she has the silencer and making sure it's loaded. Have you smelled festering flesh? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then from there, as she's reloading it so they can hear it, right? And they're like, what are you talking about? She's like, have you seen your parents or siblings crushed in a crumbling building right before your eyes? So, have you watched your family be crushed in the debris? Okay. And then it pans back to Loid when she says that. Have you ever seen a piece of your lover's flesh stuck to a wall? Ah. So, have you seen the death of a lover? And so then we go from there where she's like, have you ever been so hungry you tried to bite into a tree? Have you ever stewed human flesh in a pot? Ugh! It's like that cannibalism, but she's like, how desperate have you been, right? So she's like, have you starved? Have you starved to the point of killing others? It seems like that's a metaphor for her saying, have you ever been so desperate and starving that you would kill others in order to eat? She's like, have you ever done that before? Because she sounds like a witch there. And she's like, have you ever had someone close to you deny? What did she say there? we go through like a big scene there, right? So I'm going to see this part here. Have you ever had someone close to you deny your enemy's humanity? Oh, interesting. So this part here, had someone close to you. So it said, have you ever had someone close to you deny your enemy's humanity? All right, and this is a big long phrase here. Saying so they could continue the killing. So they could continue killing. And then we see what I'm guessing is that Loid there in the darkness, only to become so mentally broken after the conflict is over. Only to become so mentally broken after the conflict is over. And we see a bunch of soldiers there, and then like you see the blood going down the walls, and it looks like ropes that they weep with regret and shame, vomit, and eventually take their own life. It's a rope, yeah, like a noose. Okay, so yeah, they take their own life. That last one there, that last one kind of hits home in a very realistic way, in something that I think an audience could relate to. The idea that you fight in a war and they tell you your enemy doesn't have a humanity, and so you keep killing them, and it breaks you mentally so that when you go home you take your own life out of guilt and shame. Which is sadly something that happens to a lot of veterans, is they just can't cope with what they had to do. And so that line there, like this all stuff here was stuff that you're like, oh, like the line before talks about like melting flesh in a pot, and you're like, oh, it sounds like a witch thing. It sounds, fairy tale-esque. And then the very next line is something incredibly hard-hitting and immediately relatable. And it's like, oh, that's the tonal shift, right? And then the light flickering. Oh. And just like the flickering light there, and she holds that silencer up to his head. Apparently you've learned nothing of war at your university. Her face, God, that face she makes, looking through those glasses at him. Oof. Oof. You utter children. And she's like, and then, yeah, he tells, and then we come back to Keith, who's got the bomb on the dog to go after the minister. And this is the point where we're going to ambush him at plan B. Yep. Okay. And so then we cut from there. And then, of course, Keith's like, I'll just blow you up. Like everything she just told them, like all that horrible things, like we cut to Keith and it's like just all washed over. But then, yeah, from there we go back and we have Loid being like, they're all going to those points to investigate for the bombs. And she's like, Twilight, I want you to investigate around Area B1. That's probably the biggest target. And she's like, stop them no matter what. And he's like, I know. And I agree with you. I am absolutely done with war. Yeah, because Loid's like, I'm done. Like, I have people I care about now. And knowing that Loid has probably experienced the same loss that she was describing all these years, and that he can relate to it, and he's just over it, right? That's like his driving factors. He probably knows several of these incidents, and they're like his driving force of, we need to stop all this, right? That's why he does what he does, right? And now, compounded upon that is the fact that he has a family and people he cares about. And so, yeah, he'll do anything to stop the bomb and the threat to the people. Oh, damn. Like, yeah, it gets serious in this episode. I'm like, oh my gosh. And he's like just destined to stop it. But meanwhile, Anya, like going through town, is like, okay, I made it to the clock place. But because we have to have like some bits of levity in this, she's like, I can't tell time. Which honestly, yeah, she's 5 years old. That's normally around the time a normal child would probably learn how to tell time. But, they're doing geometrical equations at the academy she's at Eden University. So I love she's like, I gotta figure out how to tell time. And she's like, I love she asked the old man, she's like, when does the clock go boing? It's like so freaking cute. But yeah, so I thought it was interesting that the bomb dog knew that our big old fluffy doggo was there and tried to like go after him. And the sad thing is that those dogs were being walked together back in the last episode. And so now one of them possibly is going to die. I know he's a bomb dog, but I don't know. I'm really an animal lover. So the idea of these animals getting killed in this episode, it's really sad. I'm like, no, I don't like it. But Anya, girl, going up to the clock tower, I was like, Anya is freaking smart. She is a smart little kid, figuring out that she needs to go in and see the bomb. And I love that she comments on how it's not like the TV show. She's like, in Bond Man, there's a red wire and a blue wire, and you always know which one to cut. But here, they're all black. She's like, what do I do? How do I defuse the bomb? And so I was like, what is she going to do? And I thought, you know, the thought crosses your mind. You're like, okay, she could stay on the other side of the door and tell Loid not to come in. But then that opens up a whole host of questions, right? That opens up a whole host of questions of why she's there. How'd she get in? What is she doing there? What's the deal with Yor? She'd have to explain her powers. Like she figures out that's not going to be a viable option. So instead, I love the idea that she uses the ketchup. And I love she puts the gloves on like she's going to disarm the bomb, like her little mittens with the bows. Oh my gosh. But then she's like, I don't know how to disarm a bomb. And then I love that she uses the ketchup to draw a bomb on the door. The thing about it is, if I were Loid, I'd be like, what is this? This looks like Anya's drawing, right? But he's totally in. I mean, I guess it doesn't look like Anya's drawing. It does look like an eggplant. Now that I'm looking at the door, it does look like an eggplant. When she's got like the little things that look like a bomb charge on there. And no, but it does kind of look like an eggplant. That's really funny. But yeah, how would he know that it's her drawing style, right? We, the audience, are like, does he gonna pick up on it? But I love that his instinct said something was up, not to do it. And then we see that he sees them all together. So he sees them all together there. So that must mean that he's okay later on, right? That he's okay later on at the end of this episode? That means he'll be fine. Right? Because old Borf saw the writing on the wall. But they have to get out of there because the secret police is showing up. And, of course, then the prime minister gets there, right? And the government has eyes everywhere. And we see Yuri looking up at him. What's hilarious is that Loid was right in front of Yuri. Again, he was disguised as the prime minister there and was right in front of Yuri and took off, and Yuri didn't even realize it. Absolutely hilarious. I love it. I love that Yuri. I'm ready for Yuri to come back in this series. I honestly am. But yeah, he stole the car under the guise as prime minister to try and I like that he wore the glasses to steal the thing. Like he couldn't let the prime minister see his actual face completely. But he stole it to lure Keith away so that he could get rid of Keith and the bomb dog. But yeah, like the fact that they were firing bullets into Keith's car, like I get it, like they're trying to stop him, but for some reason the tone of this episode, the way that it was so much more serious, like we had gunshots and stuff in the first couple episodes of the series, but for some reason it just didn't feel as serious. I don't know, it felt like it was more just like a petty job and just get the job done, right? But there's something about this episode where it just feels more real. And the fact when they're firing at Keith's car and everything and the gunshots and everything, it just felt a lot more serious, right? The stakes were higher. And then, of course, the dog going after him. And then Loid, I feel like that's from the OP, right? Where he rips off the mask. And he's like, I'm really sorry, doggo. He's like, I'm sure the last thing you wanted was to get dragged into some foolish conflict between humans. Ugh. Time to end this. Like, that's the thing, that he's like, this stupid conflict is not only dragging humans into the fray, but it's killing animals too. He's like, what the hell, right? So I feel like he's gonna kill the dog, but that's the bomb on him, but I don't know. It's really sad. So yeah, but that whole speech by Sylvia was just so good. I freaking loved it. And then they cut to the cliffhanger. I'm like, what the hell? How dare they? I feel like in the ED, we still don't know who the silver lady is. Silver-haired lady is. I feel like in the ED, we're seeing all the rubble and everything and the couch surrounding it. Like, that seems so, I don't know, an embodiment of something happening in the episode. Like, it seems like it's connected to this and the explosions and everything, but maybe not. But yeah, this episode was really, really good. Just the fact that things get really serious. I do want to comment, though, the Prime Minister, that when he talks about, he's like, the desperate measures to use the Prime Minister to, or Minister Brantz, whatever it is, to like get out of the guest room and go lure him there. I do think it's kind of interesting that he calls Wise out. He's like, I thought that Wise would have this taken care of already. He's like, this is because of the terrorist incidents. And he says, what? Hasn't Wise eliminated the suspects? And the guy's like, he's like, what a worthless lot. Because that's the thing. It's like they're sitting there. That kind of makes me a little bit mad on the behalf of the minister, because like these guys are like fighting tooth or nail to do all that they can, and he calls them worthless. I'm like, dude, they just saved your life. Like, you know, you should maybe thank them, possibly, but I don't know. It's gonna be sad if Loid kills the dog. I'm like, would they kill a dog on a show like this? Would they really do it? Or is Loid gonna find a way to not kill the dog and like shoot Keith instead? Am I rooting for Keith to get shot over the dog? Kind of. The dog didn't ask for any of this. He's just being loyal, right? He's just a dog. It's hilarious because I did watch Chainsaw Man before watching this episode, and I'm like overwhelmed with dogs in this like viewing experience. So I'm like, I have like major dog empathy. Huckleberry's at my feet right now, like sitting on my feet. So I'm like in full doggo mode. So yeah, that's where I am mentally. But yeah, I wish I had more to say, but this episode is so straightforward and just action-packed. And who knows where Yor is? Yor's like looking around being like, Anya! Anya-san! And Anya's meanwhile just like, her and the Borf just glad that Loid's safe. So I'm assuming we're going to get resolution to this in the next episode, because we're going to find out what happens with Loid and Keith, the bomb dogs, the minister. Like, what's that overall aftermath of all this going to be? Are they going to be able to save the minister? Is Yuri going to make a move? Is Yor going to find Anya? Will Anya get her parents to let her keep the dog that can see the future? I mean, the dog is there looking up at her in her house, so maybe. But I'm really, really curious to see what all goes down, so. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, but this episode was so good. Sylvia being badass, Loid being badass, Yor being badass, Anya being badass, just a badassery of Spy Family. So yeah, I'm excited to hear your thoughts down below. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with more of Spy Family. Bye.